We have Ryan Atwood today with us to talk about blackberries. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Well, tell me about blackberries. I didn't know that we could grow blackberries in Florida.
Yeah, blackberries will actually grow wild. I think that's how most people associate them. They tend to be thorny when they're wild, and they tend to have really small fruit. So that's what I think most people think of when they think of blackberries.
Yeah, I don't think it was anything you can eat much of.
Yeah, but we have some new varieties that have been put out by the University of Arkansas that weren't really tested for Florida, but we've got a lot of people growing them in Florida these days. And the nice thing about them is they're thornless.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, everybody likes that because it saves the fingers. And they're very large pieces of fruit, so they're really good, pleasing to the eye, and they're nice to pick because you get so much fruit for a little effort.
Are there certain varieties that we should be trying here?
Yeah, some of the more popular varieties are Arapaho, Navajo, the Ouachita. There's a new one called the Natchez that a lot of people are excited about, but hasn't really been proven yet.
Well, what time of year do they fruit?
Typically, they're going to flower sometime in early March, and their fruit is going to be ready sometime in late May and June.
Wow, that's quite a bit different than up north.
Yeah, we tend to be a little bit earlier than the rest of the states, so we consider it an early season type of fruit like a lot of our fruit crops. And one of the things people have to realize, though, is we do have dry springs. So irrigation is going to be pretty critical in the spring to make sure that you set and grow a nice crop on those blackberries.
Do we have to worry about pollination as well?
The erects tend to be self-pollinating, which is there's two different types of blackberries. Primarily your thorny ones are going to be what they call trailing, which means they're going to kind of run. And then the thornless are going to be erect. They tend to grow upright. And most of your erects are self-pollinated. The only thing is if you do have some cross-pollination between two different varieties, you probably set a little more fruit. So if you're really looking to maximize your yield potential, then two varieties is probably a good idea.
Oh, good. Now, is there any kind of special trellis or something we have to put them on?
I've got a few slides that show some trellising, and that's in a commercial production system. That's what you're going to do. Now, I have blackberries at my house, and I run them up kind of one of those box store trellises. You know, it's basically an ornamental
lattice work thing.
Yeah, lattice work thing, and I kind of run them up that, and they seem to do fine with that. I think you could probably just grow them on the ground even, and
or
not
how
really
about
have
one of
any
those
issues.
Tomato cages?
Yeah, tomato cage. Anything that they can kind of just climb up is going to be support for it, and it's going to allow airflow for the fruit. So, you know, that keeps any kind of fungal issues that you might get on the fruit will help with that because it'll allow for that airflow.
Now, aren't blackberries biennial? So the first year they just grow vegetatively, and the second year that cane will fruit. Well, and then then it dies.
Typically, it'll be all on this year's growth. It'll all be on the new year's growth is what's going to fruit. So anything that grew out is going to fruit on this year's growth.
Oh, wow. So these don't have the problem that they have up north. They have to grow first one year, and then the second year they flower and fruit on that, and then they die, and then you have to new canes coming up.
Yeah, primicaning. There's a couple different things, and it depends on how you basically cultivate them.
Are there any ways to prune them? Special pruning? Do you have to tip them or anything like that to make them to branch or to keep them from
not
rooting
really.
out?
I've got a few plants here in gallon pots, and basically, you know, this is considered pretty much a weed by a lot of people. So it kind of makes it nice for those that don't have green thumbs because of the fact that they're hard to kill. And you can see from my two examples here, these were actually just cuttings that somebody had taken some soft wood off of and dipped them in root tone and then stuck them in a pot and then rooted them because they root really, really easily. And then these will just branch out and take off on their own and kind of run around up to kind of towards the ground or up a trellis, depending on what you have.
And are there any special planting considerations? If people can just grow their own and get them started?
Yeah, they like pH, soil pH of about 5.5 to 6.5. So you could bring your soil samples into the Ag Extension office, and the master gardeners will actually run your pH for you, so you can make any kind of correction to the pH. Like most things, they like well-drained soils. You don't want them to sit in a swampy, wet spot. But again, they're kind of a weedy species. The only thing that you really can do to damage these plants is to use Roundup or glyphosate. I think most people know it as Roundup. They're really sensitive to that. So if you're doing any weeding, you want to do hand weeding or hoeing, and you can mulch them and kind of keep the weeds at bay with that. But be very careful with Roundup. Typically, we recommend a 10-10-10 fertilizer, anywhere from a quarter to a half a pound of fertilizer annually. So they don't take a lot of fertilizer, which is another nice thing about them. So that's our recommendations for that. They do tend to get foliar or fungal issues. So you might see some spots on the leaves. Alternaria can be a problem. That'll come up as kind of like purple spots. Or they get leaf spot, which has kind of a white center on it. And I know that my plants at home have that issue. It kind of affects their health a little bit, but it won't decrease necessarily their fruit set. It's not an overly a problem. Usually you can prune out any kind of infection, and it'll grow new canes that aren't infected as well.
I just pick off the leaves that look bad. Get rid of those.
Just pick off the leaves. Pick off the leaves that look
Now,
bad.
are there any diseases that affect the fruit?
They can get some fungal issues with the fruit. If we get heavy rains, which sometimes we do in early June, it can be problematic in terms of the fruit quality. If you keep a good eye on them and you pick the fruit when it becomes ripe, then usually you don't have any problems. I know at my house we never have any issues because the kids pick them before they're ever ripe.
Well, also if you have them in some kind of a trellis or something that opens them up so there's more air movement around, they can dry out. Probably it's a little better.
Right.
Does solutionsforyourlife.com have information about blackberries as well?
It does.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.